Welcome to Law Excellence Hindu News Analysis. Today we are going to cover these topics that are appeared in the Hindu newspaper. Right? Now coming to the first article. Now this article is saying that overhanging storm over the Red Sea. Now the context of the news is that in 2023, due to the war between Israel and Hamas, there are a lot of attacks that happen on the commercial ships, especially piracy attacks, etc., to counter the Israel. Now this lead to disruption in the supply chains, global trade, etc. Now, this affected countries in multi ways. Now, it has been said that this article mentions some of the effects of supply chain disruptions in the Suez Canal, especially in the Red Sea area. Now, it has been said that still this is not recovered. Now, it is said that around 12% of the global trade is passing through the Suez Canal, but because of the issues happened in the Red Sea, now these things are reduced by around 70% in the present moment. Now, trade is reduced by the 70%. Now, because of this, there is a loss of revenue to the bordering countries around $6 billion. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. Now, this article mentions certain challenges because of this. Now, it has been said that Red Sea is the shortest sea route between the Asia and Europe. See, it is the shortest sea route. It avoids the circumventing or passing through the Cape of Good Hope. Now, because of these issues, we have to pass through like this. Now, because of this, there are challenges like there is increasing freight cost. Yes, there is increasing insurance cost for the ships. Now, increasing transit time. Now, it is being said that earlier from Europe to travel the goods, it takes 30 days. Now, it is being 60 days. Now, transit time is increasing. Now, because of the increasing transit time, there are deterioration of goods because certain goods can be perishable in nature. Now, because of the increase in transit time, especially the agriculture goods are deteriorating. Now, that is what mentioned in this article. Now, another important thing is highlighted is cost of Indian exports is also increasing. Now, if cost of Indian exports are increasing, it becomes uncompetitive for Indian goods, etc. Now, these things are there that are mentioned in this. Okay, now how this thing is important from the examination perspective. Now you know that this is very important, especially from the IR perspective. It can be asked that how the global supply chain disruptions affecting in India. Now you can mention all these points. Now you can mention data like this: 12% of the world trade is happening through the Suez Canal, right? From the mains perspective in JS paper 2. Now from the prelims perspective, the area, especially the mapping of Red Sea, is very important. If you see the prelims previous year question, it is clearly said that Mediterranean Sea is border of which of the following countries? No, it is asking that which of the following countries have border with Mediterranean countries. Now, if you see the options, it is Lebanon and Syria are the countries that are bordering with Mediterranean Sea. Now, the option is 3 and 4. Okay. Now, like this, there are questions in future can be asked about the Red Sea also. Now, if you remember, a question was asked about the Red Sea in 2024 prelims also, right? Now, we will see mapping about the Red Sea. Now, from the prelims perspective, just remember the countries bordering the Red Sea here. It is Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, Yemen, Saudi Arabia. So many people confuse that whether Israel and Jordan are bordering the Red Sea or not. As they are bordering the Gulf of Aqaba, that means Gulf of Aqaba is also connected to the Red Sea. So we can say that they are also a minor bordering countries of the Red Sea, like Israel and Jordan. Okay, this is what you have to know from the examination perspective. Other important thing is that you have to know about the straits. There is one important strait here, that is Bab al Mandab Strait. Okay, Bab al Mandab Strait. This Bab al Mandab Strait connecting both the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. This Gulf of Aden is mentioned in this article also. Remember that this is the Gulf of Aden. Okay, this Bab al Mandab Strait connecting the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Now just remember this is Sinai Peninsula. Okay, and this is Gulf of Suez, and this is Gulf of Aqaba. Okay, here it is Gulf of Aqaba. Okay, from the examination perspective, many people think that Nile River is flowing into the Red Sea. Just remember that Nile River is flowing into the Mediterranean Sea, okay, not Red Sea. And from the examination perspective, remember another important fact that there is no major river that is flowing into the Red Sea. No major river, I'm saying. I'm not saying no rivers. No major rivers are flowing into the Red Sea. Okay, these are the things you have to know from the examination perspective. Remember here there is Gulf of Aqaba, okay? This is Gulf of Aqaba. This is Gulf of Suez. Okay, Gulf of Aqaba is bordered by the Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Israel. Okay. Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that Center is working on national policy document on female labor participation. Now what is the context of the news? Now the context of the news is that recently a World Bank report highlighted that there is decrease in the female labor force participation rate, especially among the married women. Now because of the cultural restrictions that are there in India. Now from the examination perspective, you can add certain data in the GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. See, in India, the labor force participation rate for male is 78%. For female, it is 41.7%. In rural areas, the labor force participation rate is high, that is 63%. In urban areas, it is 52%. This is as per the periodic labor force survey report of recent report. Okay, this may be asked in the prelims also, right? Okay, it may be asked that rural labor force participation rate is higher than urban area. Yes, it is true. Okay, things like that you can use in the mains examination also. Now, why this article is very important? Yes, it is important. If you see GS paper 3 question, this is asked in the recently 2023 mains. It said the distinguish between care economy and monetized economy. How can the care economy be brought into monetized economy through women empowerment? Now, this is what asked in 2023 mains examination. Now, this article is also mentioning about the care economy. Now, this article is saying that female labor force participation rate in India is lower. It is mainly because of women are engaged in the care economy. Okay. Now, what is meant by the care economy? First of all, what is meant by the labor force participation rate? Now, the percentage of working age population who are looking for job or doing some work or engage, that means engage in employment. Okay, either they are looking for job or doing already work. Now these are considered as labor force participation rate. Now why women are low? Because women are mostly involved in the care economy. Care economy means looking after the household unpaid labor. What does it include? It includes cleaning, feeding the children, looking the elderly care. Now you know that in India elderly care is disproportionately gendered because mainly it has been said that household work is the role of women. Right now, time use survey also said that 3/4 of the household work is done by the woman itself. Okay, 3/4 of the time. So it is also said that there is time poverty for women. This is a keyword you can use in the mains examination. What is meant by time poverty? Now it is being said that 2/3 of the time of women, especially in a day, is being spent on the household care. Now they are exhausted in the process and they have less time and energy to invest in their skill upgradation. Okay, this is a time poverty. Now, all these things are reducing the female labor force participation rate. Now, not only that, married women are further vulnerable. Why? Because recently you may have here an allegation on the Foxconn that it is being said that married women are not recruited. Now, it is being the reason it is said because female women, especially married women, have more social obligations because of which they are taking many absentees, like many leaves, etc. Because of which they are not recruited or not preferred to be recruited. Now, this is the allegation on the complaint was filed on the Foxconn recently. Now, things like that are happening. Okay, now in this context, now it is being said that now care economy has to be recognized and remunerated. Okay, International Labour Organization also said that unpaid labor that women is doing constitutes around 4% of GDP. Now, women constitutes around half of the India's population, nearly half of the India's population. If India wants to rapidly grow or potentially increase its GDP, this half of the population has to be contributed or this contribution has to be recognized. Okay, now that this is what mentioned in this article. For this or improving this labor force participation rate, now central government is working on bringing a policy document. Now, one of the important thing is that supporting the married women through providing crèche facilities. Now, it is being said that as a part of their caring role, major women spend most of their time in providing services to the children, especially young children. For that, government is now came up with a Palana scheme already. Palana scheme, or it is also called a national program on Anganwadi cum crutch. Now, in this presently, until now, there are around 1,000 facilities are already set up in which children of the working parents are being provided services, especially caring the children, things like that. Now, one of the important discussion in this article is that informal workers also need to get these crèche facilities because they are also having children or things like that. Okay, now you can use this in the GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. If any question comes under the employment and unemployment, why women are not into the employment, it is because of more women are involved in unpaid labor. Now you can use this in the GS paper 3 or in GS paper 2 also you can say like that. Okay, why women are not skilled much or things like that. Or you can use this national Anganwadi crèche facility in GS paper 2 question, schemes for vulnerable sections. In this way, you can use the same theme in multiple syllabus points. Okay, now this is what the article is saying. Now we'll go to the next article. Now this article is saying that India's cities, their non-communicable disease burden. Now it is being said that because of the sedentary lifestyles, non-communicable disease burden is increasing in India. Now this is more in urban areas than in rural areas. Now, within the urban areas, it is said that it is more among the vulnerable sections than the elite. These vulnerable sections majorly include migrants, informal workers, Now this is what mentioned in this article. Now it is being said that non-communicable diseases are silent in nature. To identify their symptoms, it is very rare and difficult. It takes a lot of time taking. Hence, it is difficult to prevent them. Now, for this, there is need of frequent checkup. That's why they're normal communicable diseases. Because of non-communicable diseases, less symptoms. Now, but this frequent checking is a burden for the vulnerable sections because it leads to increase in out-of-pocket expenditure. So, hence, this non-communicable disease is a burden more for the vulnerable sections, especially the migrants. And that is what mentioned in this article. This is the crux of the article. Okay. Now, this article is important from the examination perspective because now this article is saying that especially the migrants and informal workers are not getting adequate support from the primary healthcare structures of the society, especially government institutions, hospitals, things like that. Now, that is what mentioned in this article. So, primary healthcare is a very important component in GS paper 2 syllabus. Okay, migrants as such is also very important component in the vulnerable sections and in GS paper 1 also. Now, you can use them as a suggestions, challenges, measures in wherever the question it is asked. Okay. We have to integrate the syllabus like this. Now, previously a question was asked, besides being a moral imperative of welfare state, primary healthcare structure is a necessary precondition for sustainable and inclusive development. Okay. Now, this is what asked in the GS paper 2 previously. Now, we will look into what the author said regarding this. Okay. Now, author in this article said that presently around half of the world population is living in the urban areas or urban-like areas. Now, this figure may be projected to reach 70% by 2050. Because of this rapid unsustainable urbanization, there is increasing non-communicable diseases or difficulty faced in getting the services from the institutions like primary healthcare, especially the vulnerable sections. Okay. Now, another important thing mentioned in this article was it has been said that presently around 49% of the people living in the urban areas are living in slums or slum-like conditions. Okay. Now, this leads to a triple burden for these vulnerable sections. What is meant by the triple burden? Hazardous work environments. The way they are working, especially the place of work, is hazardous in nature because of the informal. There is no proper regulation. Okay, and there is no proper social security also. Now, because of this, there is related financial vulnerability of these people, and there is limited healthcare access. Now, it has been said that migrants lack identity, especially because in many of the government institutions, services are provided based on identity, especially it is Aadhaar or local ration card, things like that. Even you know that there is ration is provided especially based on the identity. Now, for that, government is taken one nation, one ration, things like that, because identity is very important. Now, another thing is social exclusion. People are excluded, especially the people living in the slums from the mainstream society for many things. And spatial segregation. Now, it is being said that certain areas are labeled as a backward in nature. Accordingly, they are given characterized. Now, when there is financial and healthcare vulnerability of these people, this may lead to intergenerational poverty because of their increase in out-of-pocket expenditure. Now, presently in India, it has been said the out-of-pocket expenditure is around 48%, especially because of the healthcare in. So now it is being said that even World Bank said that many people in India are just one hospitalization away from the poverty. Now, this indicates that weak social security infrastructure, especially this vulnerable population. Okay, this is what mentioned in this article. Now, this vulnerability is more for the especially urban poor. Okay, now remember these points. This can be very much integrated into the Indian society GS paper 1 question regarding the urbanization or poverty related problems. Okay, in that syllabus point also. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. Now, it is being said that this article we need to cater the tailored schemes for the informal sections, especially regarding healthcare. For that, we need community-led, community-based non-communicable disease prevention. Now, in India, it is being said that national non-communicable disease prevention policy is there as per this article. Now, remember that there is a policy. Now, you can use this in examination also. Now, this article mentioned that there is a poor implementation. Okay. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. Now, remember this. These points like 49% triple burden, social exclusion, spatial segregation, 48% is out-of-pocket expenditure, one hospitalization away from poverty. Things. These are the important keywords you can use in the mains examination. Okay, just remember this. Okay. Now, this is what mentioned in this news. Now, we'll move to the next article. Now, this article is saying that research security should be a national priority. Now, what is the context of the news? The news is saying that India has a target of being a developed economy by 2047. Now, the time to reach 2047 is called Amrit Kal. Now, Amritkal, our focus should be on R&D, that is research and development. So research and development technology. Now technology has to play a key role in this Amritkal to ensure the India's goal of Viksit Bharat 2047. No, this is what the article is saying. But there are certain challenges in the India for this innovation ecosystem. Now, what are the challenges? There are issues of funding. Now, you know that India is presently, it has been said that just 0.7% of the GDP is spent on the research and development. Now, most of this is coming from the government sectors. And so there is less private sector participation in the research and development funding for activities in India. Now there is another issue of brain drain in India, right? Now majority of the scientists in the world over are have Indian origin, right? Or someone is migrated from India. Now Indian students are also contributing in the international level by migrating, right? Now another issue is that now it is said that future is AI, artificial intelligence, and there are emerging technologies such as cybersecurity, semiconductors, blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, and etc. Now in this context, a lot of research is required in these new emerging sunrise technologies. Now, this technology is very important because these sunrise sectors are the key strategic sectors and critical infrastructure also part of it, right? Cybersecurity and all these things because of the increasing digitalizing of economy and governance. Now, another important thing or mention is in this article is the quality of journals and patents are less in India. There are less citations of Indian articles. There are less number of patents. Now, quality of higher education institutions are in India also a question because of there are less number of Indian institutions in the global rankings. Now, another important thing is in India, majorly the research is limited to the especially the student and university level to the IITs and IIM majorly. So these are the allied institutions and they're not available or funds are not available to third tier colleges or lower level colleges and professors. Now, all these are the challenges that are involved in India. Now, in this context, we have to collaborate. Now, this article is saying that we have to collaborate with the foreign countries, institutions, and higher education institutions, scientists, things like that. But there is a challenges in this process. Now, that is what I mentioned in this article. Now, these challenges maybe there can be a foreign influence in our research activities, things like the foreign influence in terms of funding or things like that. Now, that has to be taken care. Okay, that is what this article is saying. That is what research is security means. Now, this article is important from the examination. Why? Because in GS paper 3, there is a direct syllabus point that is issues related to the intellectual property rights. Now, there are year after year, at least alternative years, there are questions asking about the intellectual property rights and science and technology development. As well as there is another syllabus point, there is application of science and technology in daily life and their effects. Okay. In this context, you have to at least you can use these fodder points also in the introduction or conclusion and things like that. Okay. Now, if you see the previous question, now it has been said that in a globalized world, intellectual property rights assume significance and are a source of litigation also. Broadly distinguished between the terms copyrights, patents, and trade secrets. Now, this is what the question previously asked. Now, in this context, already we discussed certain main points. Now, we will also discuss certain challenges that are mentioned in this article because of the collaboration between the transnational countries in the research and development activities. Okay. Now, this article is mentioning that presently, because of the globalized world and technology is at the base of it, collaboration and free exchange of knowledge is very important and they are fundamental to the scientific progress of the world. So, presently, there are certain strategic technologies which are critical for the economy and the country that include space, defense, semiconductors, nuclear technology, cybersecurity, biotechnology, clean energy, etc., artificial intelligence. Now, all these are the very important strategic and sunrise technologies that are very important and can leverage the economy in the future, in the coming days. Now, for this, innovation is required, and innovations cannot be isolated. It requires support from other countries also. That's why this article is saying collaboration. Now, just now I mentioned that because of the challenges of funding and all this thing stuff, we need collaboration with a trusted partner. So collaboration with the trusted partners. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. Now, certain challenges mentioned in this article was foreign interference. Now, how foreign interference can be happen in research and development ecosystem? It can be through funds. Now, recently there is an example in the Harvard University that is professor and two assistant students are being convicted because that they are not informed about the funds that they are getting from the China. Now, the problem with China is promoting dual use technology. There is fusion of usage of technology between academies and militaries. Hence, this was not informed. Now they are convicted later. Now there are issues of intellectual property theft because of lack of alignment of the intellectual property rights policies, things like that. There is insider threats because, as we said, collaboration. Collaboration can be academias, scientists, universities, professors. Now no one knows who can be part of the sabotage or espionage, things like that. We have to be very careful. Now, next important thing is cyber attacks on the sensitive data. Now, recently there is a cyber attack on COVID-19 research and development facility in the Europe in which they still sensitive vaccine data. Things like that are happening. Now, this may lead to sensitive information unauthorized access because research involves not just in normal vaccine information but also sensitive critical technology in defense, cyber security, semiconductors, and things like that. All this may lead to delay in technological advancements. Okay. Now, this also saying that this also prevents technology transfer because of the apprehension of the sharing to the non-enemy countries or things like that. Okay. Now, this article also mentions certain measures to overcome these challenges. Now, we will look into it. The measures provided by this article is that based on the international practices. Now, in US, there is a policy called US Chips and Science Act, in which it is regulating the technology transfer, monitoring the collaboration between the academies, especially transnational academies, collaboration between institutions who are involved in that. What is the work is on scientific progress or things like that. So everything is in monitoring and surveilling. This is what mentioned in this law. And another important thing is in Canada there is a policies called National Security Guidelines for Research Partnerships, on whom these research or scientists are in partnership with other countries or things like that. Now, another important thing in Canada, it has been said that certain countries are highlighted in which China, Iran, Russia. The collaboration with these countries should be avoided or things like that based on the country's geopolitical situations. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. Now, these type of regulations should not lead to over-regulation. It may lead to red tapeism, and overall it affects the research and development ecosystem. Now, that is what mentioned in this article. Now, he said that it should avoid in the process over-regulation of the research and development and collaborations. Now, this cannot be taken as a reason to prevent collaborations. Now, the article is saying that we need trusted international partners, and there are international partners who are trusted over the time. We have to collaborate with them in research and development. Now, that is what mentioned in this article. Now, article also mentioned that there is a need of classification of research into different categories based on their importance to the economy, technology, security, national interest, things like that. This is what mentioned. Another important thing mentioned here is that this research security should not become an instrument of political interference to the academic institutions. Okay. Now, there should not be political interference in the process of regulation or monitoring of collaboration, things like that. Now, this is what mentioned. Another important suggestion that is mentioned in this article is a dedicated office similar to the one in the US. There is in US, there is a National Science Foundation, things like that. We need an Indian National Science Foundation to monitor this research security under the Anusandhan National Research Foundation. Now, you know that this Anusandhan National Foundation, National Research Foundation, is established based on the recommendation of National Education Policy, right? This to provide the strategic direction to the India's science and technology innovation, right? Now, under this, an office has to be established. That is what mentioned in this article. Now, from the prelims perspective, just remember that this Anusandhan National Research Foundation is established based on the act called Anusandhan National Research Foundation Act of 2023. Okay. Now, this is under the Department of Science and Technology. Now, this will be under the head of PM. Ex officio president is Prime Minister. Hence, this is very important from the prelims perspective. Now, this is happened recently only. From the prelims perspective, these things are important. Okay. Now, you can use this in GS paper 3, in human resource development of GS paper 2 also, the Sansandhan National Research Foundation, because it is recommended by the National Education Policy of 2020. Okay. In this way, you have to integrate the syllabus. Now, these are the things that are important from the examination perspective. Okay. Now, coming to the next article. Now, what this article is saying? This article is saying, in our fight against climate change, could the seas turn the tide? Now, what is the context of the news? You know that world has a goal of reducing the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius as per the Paris climate deal. Now, in this context, we are taking a lot of measures in mitigating the climate change, right? Now, in this context, now it has been said that whatever the measures we have taken, it is increasing pressure on the land. Now, the space on the land is being saturated. Now, we have immense surface area on the oceans, seas, lakes, rivers. Now, we have to leverage this in mitigating the climate change because the oceans are the very important source of carbon sequestration. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. And in this article, it is clearly mentioned that 25% of the anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions and more than 90% of the excess heat generated by the greenhouse gases are being sequestered by the oceans. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. Now, in this context, it is saying that it is important to use this ocean-based carbon sequestration. Now, sometimes we also call this as blue carbon, right? Now, this was asked in previous prelims also, if you remember. Now, why this article is important? Yes, this article is important. Carbon sequestration is very important topic both from prelims and mains perspective. Now, if you see this question, 2017 prelims question, it was asked in the context of mitigating the impending global warming due to the emissions of carbon dioxide, which of the following can be the potent carbon sequestration? Okay, abundant uneconomical coal seams. This first option. Yes, this is true. Uneconomic coal seams can be used for the carbon sequestration in the land, under the land. And depleted oil and gas reserves also can be used for carbon sequestration, storing of carbon, nothing but. Carbon sequestration means you understood that it's nothing but storing of carbon, absorbing carbon by removing from the atmosphere. For example, absorbing carbon dioxide, things like that, carbon sequestration also involves afforestation. For example, if you do afforestation of 1 acre of land, right? This plants absorb the carbon dioxide. No, that is also part of the carbon sequestration process, right? Okay. Now, next important option is subterranean deep saline formation. Now, all these things are correct. Answer is 1, 2, 3. Answer D. Now, all this, see, subterranean deep saline formations. Now, this point is also here mentioned in this article, that is seas. Now, seas are used one of the form of carbon sequestration, important form of carbon sequestration. It is clearly mentioned that 25% of anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions are being absorbed by these oceans. Now, this article mentioned that we need to leverage this immense surface area that is available in the oceans. Now, this is the crux of the news. Now, we will mention certain measures that the author mentioned regarding the carbon sequestration, and there are certain challenges in applying those measures. Now, we will see those from the mains perspective, and there are certain keywords also from the prelims perspective. We'll see. So just now we mentioned that 25% is being presently absorbed by the oceans. Now, investing in these sequestration technologies by using this wide open expanse of the ocean is logical and inevitable. Now, this article mentioned that using of oceans is inevitable and is indispensable to control the climate change in the present context. Now, land is saturated. Already there is a lot of pressure because of the increasing cultivation, food security. Right? Less land is available to support this carbon capturing process. Now, hence, we need to leverage these oceans, seas, rivers, and even lakes. Now, why this is important? Because once it is absorbed by all these oceans and seas, it said that this carbon dioxide or other greenhouse gases are mixed and binding with the minerals that are available in the oceans. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. The author mentions certain process such as biotic approaches. What does it mean by biotic approaches? Biotic approaches means using greenery or plants that are flora that are available in the ocean seas, such as mangroves, kelps. All these are the ocean flora that are useful in absorbing the greenhouse gas. So nothing but you can say that it is like an afforestation in the underwater forest. Things like that. Okay, this is biotic process. And now author also mentioned that the biotic process is slow in nature, slow and gradual, and takes time. Now, this is what mentioned. Now, to address this issue, the author also mentioned there are certain abiotic practices that use technology, and this is technological intensive, in which physically they will manipulate the chemical properties such as ocean alkalinity. Now, there is a process called OAE. Remember this point, this is important, maybe asked. Ocean alkalinity enhancement, OAE. What does it mean? It increases the alkalinity of the ocean water to counter the acidity and to enable to absorb the more carbon dioxide. Okay, now this is what ocean alkalinity. That means increasing the ocean alkalinity will enhance the carbon dioxide absorption capacity. Now, this is what mentioned in this article. Another important measure this mentioned in this article is ocean iron fertilization. What does it mean? Use this keyword. This can be used. All these are the suggestions that can be used in the mains answer in GS paper 3. If at all they asked about marine resources are important, why marine resources are important, or what are the measures for mitigating the climate change, you can use these points as ocean alkalinity enhancement, ocean iron fertilization, microalgae cultivation. Okay, these are very important keywords. Ocean iron fertilization, nothing but it changes the chemical properties by stimulating the phytoplankton blooms. Now, you know that phytoplankton is nothing but flora in the under the water. Now, this, as I said, it is if it is flora, it captures the carbon, right? This is what mentioned. Now, microalgae cultivation also similar process in which it absorbs the, it's manually or technologically cultivate the infuse the microalgae, which in turn enhance the carbon absorption capacity. Now, these are the measures that are mentioned by the article. Okay, now author is also saying that there are certain challenges in applying these measures. Okay, we will discuss that. The first important challenge that is mentioned by this author is ocean acidification. See, if there is increasing absorption of carbon dioxide by the oceans, it lead to ocean acidification. Now, you know, acidification means decreasing pH value, right? Now, this threatens the marine ecosystem. Now, especially it is said that increasing acidification threatens the calcifying organisms. Why? Because calcifying organisms such as shells, corals, right? These corals are eaten by this SDT. Now there are less chances of formation, hence affect overall coral diversity, fish and different types of shellfish or different types of marine organisms that are based on the forming their shells. Now another important thing is pollution. Now increasing carbon dioxide also lead to pollution such as dead zones, that means low oxygen areas. Now this lead to profound harm to marine ecosystems. It leads to deoxygenation marine habitats, because now it is being said that when you increase the areas under the microalgae cultivation and booming the phytoplankton, now it is being said that they demand more oxygen. That means you know that about the biological oxygen demand, right? This biological oxygen demand is increases because the available oxygen is being absorbed by this. Now in this way, deoxygenated, it creates dead zones. That means dead zones. Now public perception. Now many people will have apprehensions about using technological measures like this regarding climate mitigation, and there are chances of public perception being apprehension, and it's difficult to apply. This is what mentioned in this article. Another important measures how much carbon is captured. Now there is no proper tool of measuring metric that how much carbon is captured by the oceans or how much is to be captured, what is their natural capacity, or how long it stays buried, because there are chances that it can be leaked, or right. This is a challenge, one of the important challenge. No, all these are the challenges and threats mentioned by the author. But the author also said that this marine carbon dioxide capturing is not a substitute. That is, it's saying that for a complete reduction of emissions. Now we have using fossil fuels, right? We cannot continue fossil fuel usage and do this marine carbon capturing, because it cannot be a substitute. This is one of the suggestion or one of the measure only, because in the present moment of intense climate change, this marine carbon capture or carbon sequestration is indispensable. That is what mentioned in this article. Okay, it is indispensable, but we cannot rely only on this. We used to use the measures in preventing the greenhouse gases, reducing the fossil fuel uses, things like that. Okay, hence we need to balance this use of carbon sequestration with other methods. And to enable these methods in use, we need robust governance, social trust, and rigorous science application for sustainable using of this carbon sequestration methodology. Okay, this is what mentioned in this article. Now remember, these points can be used in the questions if at all asked about mitigation of climate change in GS paper 3. Okay, even in GS paper 1. Okay, remember this point. These points are very important, such as calcifying organisms. These are all keywords: deoxygenation and OAE, ocean alkaline enhancement, ocean iron fertilization. Now these are the keywords you can use in mains examination, okay, as a suggestions or measures. Remember, these things are very important. Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that in 8 IITs and 7 IIMs, over 80% of the faculty are from the general category. Okay. Now what is the context of the news? The context of the news is that the most of the faculty positions that are available in prestigious institutions like IITs and IIMs are majorly occupied by the or taken by the general category. Now this article is mentioned that there is a reservation policy that is there in this faculty position, such as for SCs and STs, such as SCs, for example, it is given I think around 15%, STs it is around 7.5%. It is still there is a reservation, but the number of people applying from these backward communities are very less for the positions of the professors and things like that. Now this is what mentioned in this article. Now why this article is important, especially knowing this data is very important. Why? Because caste is a recurring topic that was asked in previous year GS paper 1. Now if you see, this was the question just asked in GS paper 1 2023. Why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? What does mean by fluid and static? That means caste identity is sometimes it is being flexible, sometimes it's being rigid, sometimes it is being changed, sometimes it is being reinforcing and reiterating. Now these are the things that was asked in the previous year questions. Now in this context, there is a saying that in India there is an excess of caste, social status, and occupation. Now that means that most of the upper caste people are taking influential urban professions. Now being a teacher or professor is one of the thing that is taken by the upper caste people. Now this is what also mentioned in this article. Now this is what one of the argument given by the lower caste people also. Now this article further reiterating that, reinforcing that thing. Now it clearly mentioned that in 6 of the IIMs analyzed, there is no faculty member who belongs to scheduled category, scheduled tribe category. Now all these are there in this article is complete data about particular IIMs and IITs. You don't need to remember overall, but you just have to remember that is 80% of the faculty are from the general category. Some remaining are from the OBCs, but very less are from the SCs, and certain IITs or IIMs don't have even any faculty from scheduled tribes. Now in this context, you have to say that in examination, if any dimension you have to say about staticness, yes, there is certain changes in the caste and occupation. That is, certain people now backward caste are taking up the secular jobs such as IT professional things like that without caste barriers, but still there is caste barriers. That is, certain occupations are majorly occupied by the general category. For the, you can say these examples of IITs and IIMs. Okay. Now, in terms of marriage, also in India, we have to say that caste is somewhat static in nature and rigid in terms of, because it is said that less than 2% of the marriages are intercaste marriages, and technology is also leveraging for doing the endogamy, that is, marrying within the caste. For example, matrimonial site, we have telugumatrimony.com, coppermatrimony.com, and agarwalmatrimony.com, things like that. Okay, technology is also using that to make caste rigid, right? Now, caste and education. Now, recently we have seen issues of such as suicides in schools, colleges based on the caste discrimination. Now, there is an allegation of caste discrimination in IIT also. Right, recently, children is beaten to death by their government teacher in the government school because of touching the pot. Things that means these are indicating that caste is an identity as an ideology is being still in the minds, hence it is a static. Now, all these things are there. Caste and politics. You know that how caste is being used in the politics. There is a politicization of caste and casteization of politics. What does it mean? Caste is using politics to get the positions for the caste people and reservations for them. Even politics is using as a vote bank. Hence, there is a chance caste is being used as a mobility, social mobility, for example, using reservation policies. Now, today, this upper caste is also demanding reservation. For example, the Maratha reservation concept and things like that. Hence, caste is becoming static. Caste as an identity is being reinforcing. Now, caste as an opportunity. Now, it is being said that caste can be used as social capital. Now, in certain areas, it is being said that the elites of the particular caste are promoting their own caste people by providing scholarship to the poor people from their own caste, right? Providing hostels. No, things like that. You know that there is a BC hostels in urban areas, SC hostels in urban areas, separate general category, different types of general categories. There are hostels also provided. There is a BC colonies also, things like that. So there is a ghettoization into the particular communities. So caste is static to some extent. You can say that there are in certain areas caste is fluid, such as certain secular occupations. There are certain instances of marriages like love marriages are happening or things like that. Okay, education can be used as a secular source to get into the next level in the society, things like that. Okay, so this is as a topic you can use in GS paper 1 caste, or if you are having an optional like sociology, you can also use this point that 80% of the faculty are from general category. Now there is another important thing that 80% of the sanitary workers in the government, especially in the Indian railways, are also from the Dalit community, especially scheduled caste. Now things are there. So there is an excess between caste and occupation. Okay. No, these are the things you can use in the mains examination. Okay. And that's all for today. I hope you like this analysis. Thank you. Just after reading the news, try to interlink the news to multiple syllabus points in the GS paper and prelims. Okay. This is very important exercise. This will add value to your preparation. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.